This week, Dan DeCloss, the founder of PlexTrack, will join us for a segment about Survey Says, Improve Your Security Posture by Purple Teaming. Then, a segment aimed at getting you up and running with the Security Onion. In the security news, brushing that data breach under the rug, get sued by the U.S. government. All your text messages belong to someone else. Beware of the Python in your ESXi. Twitch leaks. When Lantennas attack, Zero Trust fixes everything. Recalled insulin pumps. Apache O-Day. Your iPhone is always turned on. And Apple Pay has been hacked. All that and more on this episode of Paul's Security Weekly. This is Security Weekly. For security professionals, by security professionals. Broadcasting live from G-Unit Studios in Rhode Island, it's the show where exploits run wild, packets aren't the only things getting sniffed, and the cocktails flow steady. It's Paul's Security Weekly. Keeping up with security issues across thousands of web assets without the right approach to web application security is a daunting task. Get ahead with web vulnerability scanning automation from NetSparker, a leader in dynamic and interactive application security testing, known for its ease of use and accurate results. Detect a wide range of vulnerabilities in all legacy and modern web applications, address security bugs at scale by automating the confirmation process, automatically prioritize vulnerabilities, and assign actionable tickets to the right developers in their native workflows for rapid remediation. For more information on how to scale application security with ease, visit securityweekly.com/NetSparker.
In a world where security is represented by Paul Asadorian, we have to wonder why.
Welcome everyone to Paul's Security Weekly. It's episode number 713, recorded October 7th, 2021 at G-Unit Studios here in Rhode Island. I'm flying solo in studio, however, remotely. Joining us now is going to be a regular here on Paul's Security Weekly, Mr. Josh Marpet. Josh, welcome.
Thank you. I'm very excited to be here now. It's a lovely show, and it's awesome, actually.
I'm excited to have you on the show. When I write up my stories, I look to see who the co-hosts are going to be so I can choose the stories and kind of the message to play on, everyone's unique personalities and skill sets. So I had you in mind this week, as well as our other illustrious co-host, Mr. Lee Neely, is here with us.
Oh, good to be here from Idaho. Like I said, I had a paper pun all lined up for you guys, but it was just too terrible.
Good Lord. Mr. Tyler Robinson is here with us. Tyler, welcome.
He's from the other side of the state.
Yeah. You're from Idaho as well.
Yeah, definitely born, raised, and probably will never leave. I kind of like the small population and light gun control.
Are you now captured inside of a dungeon where they are strapping you to a chair and making you do podcasts with us?
Yeah, that's part of the new contract and kind of overlords. CRA runs a real tight ship, and as part of that, we're
I see the henchman got my check. It's good.
Yeah.
Let's see. We got announcements, of course. October 21st is where you will learn why zero-knowledge encryption matters. If you missed... and that's with Keeper Security. We're going to be talking to their CTO, Adrian Sanabria, and myself. And it's a really awesome solution. We're going to get maybe a little nerdy on some crypto stuff and also some use cases for Keeper Security, where you can keep all your passwords and secrets. Of course, you can visit securityweekly.com/webcast or /on-demand to find all of our wonderful webcasts. Joining us for this segment, Dan DeCloss, founder, CEO, and president. Exactly 3 hats of PlexTrack. Dan joins us to discuss the results of the recent CRA survey of 315 security practitioners and how you can improve your security posture by purple teaming. Dan, welcome back to the show.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. As always, good to be here. And you got 3/5 of your contingents right now from Idaho. So I think that's right. I think that's saying a lot.
Got a lot of Idaho on the show tonight. It's a lot of Idaho. So, Dan, we did a survey. We tear apart a lot of surveys on the show, but I looked at these results and I was not tearing them apart. And I know I'm biased, but believe me, I'd be the first one to go, this is bunk, like with surveys all the time. But this is a good survey. We had a good number. I think anytime you're over like 190 or something like that, there's some kind of magic number to be able to derive results. There are also some that say a lesser number of the right people are a better representative in a survey. So I thought 315 was a good number.
Yeah, I thought it was really, we were very pleased. I was really intrigued to see the results, and I've been really impressed. I'm excited to talk and share about them here, and we're also doing some more stuff later coming up. So it's been fun.
Yeah, early November, I'm told the report will be released. There's a whole bunch of activities, this being one of them. I guess we should start with what kind of questions did we ask in the survey, Dan?
Yeah, so we were basically trying to figure out, hey, how many people are out there actually doing Purple Team or adversary emulation, and how is that informing your security progress, or what role is it playing in your security program? So we asked a lot of questions around, are you conducting these activities? How are you conducting them? Are you using any kind of automation platforms versus not? If you're not, have you been ever considered to do purple teaming exercises? And we kind of distinguished purple teaming different from adversarial emulation, but we also were asking around ransomware attacks, and does it help you prevent or prepare yourself for ransomware attacks? So we asked a variety of questions all around the concept of purple teaming. And if they hadn't done purple teaming, it also went into the questions around, what do you do for penetration testing? And so we got some really good disparate responses from that regard. So it was interesting.
Dan, is breach and attack simulation just automated purple teaming?
Did you say is it?
Yeah.
I think to a degree. It's going to be performing the red team side of that. Some of the platforms may also go and look for the evidence of the blue teaming, pulling from logs and things like that, but not always. So it's maybe the proactive or the red team side of it, and then the blue team still needs to go in and be able to say, like, hey, what did we block this? Did we alert on it? Did we go and investigate those kinds of things? Right.
Yeah, it's the automation of the attack phase, not necessarily the defensive side. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Right. Yeah.
I would add to that though too, Dan, right? Like the ability for purple teams to be successful really requires action to be taken, right? Whether that is looking at just the alerts and tuning the alerts so that you are seeing it after the fact. There's that collaboration between the red and blue so that it's not just one-sided attacks and blue do you see that. Like that's a kind of a common pen test theme, but it is taking that red and helping the blue develop those techniques to detect, tuning the tools and capabilities that they currently have in order to successfully do better at security long term. That's kind of the blending where there's an action and an action being taken and or a remediation effort.
Yeah, exactly. And even in the survey, we asked, like, how frequently are you doing this? If you are purple teaming, how often are you doing it? And the results were great. In terms of like, hey, yeah, people that are doing it more frequently, and it's helping inform their security strategy, and so that collaboration effect is really paying off based on the survey results. So I think that's an important aspect to continue to keep in mind.
Dan, when I reviewed the survey results, I kind of took away that there's not a whole lot of people doing purple teaming, but the ones that are doing it really like it, are getting great value from it, and are doing it more and more. That's really exactly. Really kind of the summary of the survey, right? If you had to summarize it in one sentence, right?
Yeah. It's like purple teaming pays off, right?
Yeah.
If you do it, it pays off, right? It's worth it.
But only 26% said that they were actually using purple teaming, right?
Can I break in for 1 second?
Yeah, please do.
You did you define purple teaming on the survey?
Oh, we did a whole podcast on that, Josh.
I know. We did it on Security and Compliance Weekly as well. The definition of purple teaming. So before we go any farther, was there a definition of it on the survey, though? I'm kind of curious. There was a podcast on it, but did you provide that to the people who took the survey? I'm pushing back a little bit, but I want to talk about, Dan, what's your definition of purple teaming?
Right. Yeah. No, it's a great question. So, I mean, and obviously we worked in conjunction with the CRA to do the survey, right? So the CRA actually did a great job of being independent on their collection of the results. And we made sure, like, hey, this is what we define purple teaming to be, where you have an adversarial simulation or, a set of techniques and procedures that you're actually using from a red team perspective. And the blue team is actually able to collaborate with the red team in some fashion, whether that's in real time or not. So we had a nice long paragraph of like, this is what we define to be purple teaming, so that, it didn't leave a lot of room for imagination, right?
Awesome. That makes sense.
There's a real big differentiator here too, and I think this is probably why you've seen some of the results that you did, where your return on investment proposition for purple teaming is exponentially turning out to be way better than, say, something like a red team or even just a vulnerability scan or a pen test, because you're getting collaboration and training in there for defensive teams to get, take some of the mysticism out of red teaming, take some of the maybe techniques that they maybe didn't understand as well, and build upon foundational knowledge for training. But you're also having a much quicker response time where you're able to work, maybe not through emails, maybe not through just getting a report and reading someone's hopefully good recommendations, but maybe not good recommendations. You're actually having actionable things to do with the red team where you can actually provide value in real-time change in an organization very quickly along a much more comprehensive, I would say comprehensive testing scale. You're taking some of the time-intensive things that red teams do, like phishing, physical exploitation. You're taking a lot of that out of it, and you're really bringing the value down to like, what are the risks in the business, and how do we work together to close those risks in the most comprehensive and efficient manner, rather than the stealthy, cool, sexy red team way that doesn't always get good coverage.
Yeah, it was interesting. Like in one of the questions, or maybe it was a series of questions, it was distinguishing like people that had done both or have both as part of their strategy, both red teaming / red teaming and pen testing, that they do that in conjunction with their purple teaming exercises. So whether that's, whether they're doing the purple teaming internally and then hiring like a red team every year for kind of annual compliance, but in the group that was doing both, 88% of the people that were doing the purple teaming said that their purple teaming exercises were more effective than the red team exercises. Not to say that those weren't effective. It's just the purple teaming exercises are more continuous. And so they found those to be more effective to really move their security posture forward.
Well, the red team has a very specific purpose, and this is kind of where red team's gotten a bad name or a bad rap, is people do it out of order. Initially, the red team was there to provide impact because there wasn't a huge buy-in from, upper level, or they were trying to get a program started, or they just didn't have a baseline to start. So they just wanted to, pwn all the things. They wanted to look sexy. They didn't know what they were doing. We've matured past that. But the red team still has a place where they are trying to identify, what is your blue team's capability to respond to a real incident? What is the processes that are being handled? If this was a real adversary, what is the time to detection and time to remediation and that dwell time? It's really measuring the effectiveness of all the other assessments that have come up to that point. So you should be having an internal, you should be having an architecture review, you should be doing ongoing purple teaming to tune those tools and get those into a good place. And then after that, the red team is really there to do the measurement of how successful all of those programs were.
Couldn't agree more.
I was just sharing some of the results with the internal team here. I did want to say that I think that when you have a red team exercise, it's for a different kind of purpose or outcome than a purple team. Like purple team, I kind of think like you've got your act together a little bit. You know who should be doing detection and response. Maybe when you've got a red team, you really don't know who's supposed to be doing detection and response across your organization, and you just kind of want to get a lay of the land and see kind of where you're at. And once you get a little more organized about it, then I think is where you're moving to a purple team, right?
I actually,
yeah.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Neil.
I'm sorry, Paul. I gotta disagree with you. If you don't know who's doing detection
someone
response,
disagrees with me. Not enough people disagree with me. I'm serious about this. That's why I brought you on the show, Josh.
If you start a red team exercise and you don't know who's doing detection and response, you're gonna have a real bad version of a scream test happening right then and there. There's going to be like people going, Sev 1, we've got people breaking in. Yeah, I pay for them to do that. What the hell are you talking? Like, it's going to be bad.
But that's how some people run those tests, though, Josh. They want it to be a surprise. And I'm not saying I agree with the approach. I think it maybe has its place.
You're not saying it's just a surprise. You're saying you don't know who does it.
Yes, and you don't know who does it. Well, so that's how you find out who does it, is by doing a red team and going, wait, if we break into this, if no one responds, we have a problem. If someone responds, at least now we know who should be responding. Or maybe that's not the right person responding. We don't know.
I mean, in the early days, that was kind of the idea, and that's why they went for the impact and for like figuring it out and seeing, where they stood in a security standpoint. I think we've gotten to a maturity stance, at least some organizations, some verticals, where everyone knows cybersecurity is important now. We've kind of gotten that out there. And the fact that we are able to move down the maturity chart now, the red team really should not be the first one unless you don't have that corporate buy-in, the executive buy-in, unless you don't have people that understand that you need to build this program. Honestly, in my humble opinion, you should be starting with an architectural review. You should be moving to an internal, even a purple before that, so that you have an idea of what tools you have available for visibility, and then you tune those so that when you do get a red team, you have points of visibility, you know where your gaps are. If you start the opposite way and go backwards, which a lot of places still do, you end up wasting a lot of time and value, and you make your blue team feel very inadequate, and it provides a hard starting point from a cultural standpoint of making these security assessments and collaboration between red, blue offense and vendors and consultants. It puts a bad flavor in their mouth so that collaboration is much harder to facilitate later on. We come into a lot of organizations where that has been the case, and we have to really rebuild that and start to make them feel like we're part of the team, we're on the same side, we're really making a conceited effort to facilitate better security across the world, working together rather than against each other.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Everybody's going to have different motivations, right, for when they go down the path of getting a pen test. That's either going to be from a compliance perspective, or the security team is wanting budget, which I would say that's kind of an older philosophy of, like you said, Tyler. I think we've kind of hopefully moved along in the maturity wise of like, hey, we know the value that a pen test provides, and we're ready to start engaging in those activities. But I think that what seems to be the case now is that we truly are trying to do this to inform our security strategy, right, and to help guide what our investments should be from a security program next. And I think one of the interesting things that we noted out of this survey, and I don't know if you picked up on this, Paul, but of the folks that were doing purple teaming and adversary emulation, one of the biggest outcomes was a more informed security strategy. Where should they invest next? And I think that's really indicative of the value of doing purple teaming sooner to help guide your security solution investments, and even where you might have talent shortages.
So one of my questions has been along the lines of what's the barrier to entry, but based on that comment you just made, do people not understand what the value of purple teaming is? Do they misunderstand it? Is that one of the issues?
I don't know. I mean, I think that it might still be one of those concepts that people feel like they're not ready or they're not mature enough to do it. They may not even recognize how to get started. And I think we've talked about that, before on our podcast series and other episodes. But there's a lot more resources out there to really even just get started. And our recommendation naturally is to start early and do it often. Right? Just start small. So using resources like the MITRE emulation plans, Atomic Red Team, and just doing it, even just a tabletop exercise, right, is how people get started. But I think there's still that kind of that education and awareness factor that you're probably correct.
I think some of that is also the fact that people's visibility is often, or their tooling capability is often one of the things they're trying to get budget for, or they're in the process of a POC or trying to get things implemented and set up. And a purple team is really difficult to do without a ton of good tooling, or at least a semi-mature understanding of what you have and the gaps that you have and how to utilize what you have. If there are certain gaps that make purple teaming very difficult, but there's always a good place to start. If you don't have a good sim and good logging and all that in place, why aren't you doing purple teaming on your external assets or your Office 365 configuration, where you're seeing what macros can run and iterating through the different configurations and testing all of those controls? Those are different places that I think people forget. They just think of purple team as one big assessment, and so that they have to have all the things set up. So really making sure you understand that you can start very small in very niche areas, and that's one of the real big wins for Purple Team, is the ability to configure tune a very specific niche area to be highly effective, and kind of keep that in mind as you're moving forward. It doesn't have to be this grandiose plan or assessment every single time.
But you have to have controls in place, right? The bar is you have to have some controls in place.
The bar is you have to have people and controls to utilize.
Yes.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know. Like, I mean, I might push back on that, right? Because I think, to me,
you need controls?
Kind of going back to the, what's that?
You don't need controls in place?
Well, you mean to just do an exercise? Like, that's what I'm saying. It's like, yeah, well, yeah. No, who needs security controls? That's bunch of garbage. No. I mean, I think in order to actually like feel like you can go ahead and do an exercise. I mean, I don't think you have to have a full picture of your security, posture and all of your security controls in place. I think it helps inform, these are the controls that we probably should focus on next, right? So like, for example, like maybe a healthcare clinic really wants to understand how effective they are at preventing ransomware. Go ahead and do a ransomware simulation, right? Which I would lump into a purple team type exercise, right? Hey, we're going to simulate a ransomware attack, and will anything that we have in place protect against it, right? I think that's a very valuable exercise, and that will help inform what control gaps you have and where you need to invest next. So that's kind of where I was going in terms of saying, yes, I think it doesn't hurt to know what controls you have in place, but I don't think where I'm trying to go is like, we don't have to be in this maturity misconception. Like you have to be at X level of maturity before you can start conducting some of these activities. Yeah, no,
and I agree, Dan. I don't think that having controls in place certainly we want that for security, but to do some of these exercises, you don't really need to. I think they can also highlight how important it is for you to have controls in certain areas, right? Like, we think we're good. Like ransomware, I don't think that's going to be a huge problem for us. Okay, let's do an exercise, and then very quickly realize that, whoa, that would be really, really bad, and here are the areas we need to work on. Sure, you can use 20 years ago,
provides good gap analysis. Is what it does.
Right.
Well, I think it takes away those preconceived notions, right? Like I've always given specific examples from 20 years ago. They're like, well, we're using this, and we think it's totally fine for security. And like, okay, can we test that? And then I show them their passwords, and they're like, wow, we're going to completely change how we've implemented that. That's still valid. That's still valid. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's like I have an EDR, right? But or whatever the flavor of the day is. But is it working? Is it configured correctly? That's the value of being able to test certain techniques and tactics, from an attack perspective, and do that frequently to really tune. The way we used to tune our sims, right, and tune our detective technologies, like this is what these can also be used for, right?
We have a zero trust architecture, so therefore we're fine, right?
Yeah,
it fixes everything.
I moved everything to the cloud, so I don't have to worry about this anymore, right?
Right, isn't it? It's Amazon's problem now, not mine.
Yeah. Yeah, I love the old Pat phrase that I used to hear a lot. Like, well, that's behind the firewall, so like we don't have to worry about that one. Like it's good.
I almost dropped my wine.
Wow.
So, Dan, I've actually got a question for you. Let's get back a little bit on track here.
Sure.
If you had,
well, hold on. Josh is new to the show. You should know we don't spend a lot of time on the tracks.
Well, actually, I've heard about you in the horse racing, so we're going to leave that one alone. But we wonder where our budget goes, and
that's right.
Never mind. Anyway, so Dan, this goes back to Tyler's point. You can start small. You can start in various niches in your enterprise and test them all out. Is there any spot that you think is going to give a company, on the whole, it's a generic idea, but the most value to start off with?
So to me, I think starting with, like, I love the MITRE ATT&CK lifecycle, right? I love the MITRE ATT&CK framework. So I think for me, I would always kind of do a gut check, right? Like, look at the different tactics and techniques from a high level, like, hey, where do we think we might have gaps, right? And just start there. So like when I was security director for a company here in Boise, we had a very small team, and we wanted to start doing these activities in a continuous fashion. And so we just took like a gut check across our team, like, where do we think we have gaps? Everyone pretty much came back and said, if I look at this, I feel like we have gaps in respect to lateral movement. It's like, we know we have a firewall. We've got that pretty well configured. We've got a SIM. We've got an MSSP that's handling 365 coverage. But I really think that we don't have a lot of coverage detecting lateral movement activities. So we picked like 5 or 10 activities, techniques within that tactic, and then just started testing them. And come to find out, it was true, right? So I think that's where I naturally would gravitate, is like, where's our guts say that we're weak? And then you can just continue to go from there. I think probably what's more important is getting a process in place, right? Sometimes just getting started can be a huge blocker, right?
Yeah, I agree with that, Dan. And also testing based on technique rather than specific product or area of your network, right? And because I think we've all seen that, right? We go to a client, they're like, the only thing, they always start the sentence with this, right? The only thing I care about in this context is that. And we're like, right. But wait, there's so many pathways to that. Like, don't be focused on that. Like, let's start with techniques. And, maybe some of those techniques will lead to that, but I think it's kind of sometimes misplaced. I don't know. I don't think there's any like definitive 0 or 1 binary, like, this is where you have to start every time, right? Because every organization is different at a different level of maturity, different technologies, different business problems, different assets, right? But I don't think that, I think people gravitate towards, let's just start with, like, I think that's the most important thing, so just test that. That's, part of PCI is centered around that as well. And I think that's some of the ways in which we pick on PCI, because now I can, because Jeff's not here, although Josh is.
It's just out of scope.
Yeah.
It's out of scope.
Jeff's the PCI guy, not me. So it's okay.
Jeff is the PCI guy. There you go. There was something in the report I thought was interesting. The top challenges for roughly half of the red blue team users. This was really, really fascinating to me. So the top challenges are siloed data and the inability for data analytics, limited resources, and processes that take too long. I mean, having provided security for various organizations of various sizes, and talking to thousands of people in this field on the show, that's a pretty good roundup, right, of the challenges we face. Yeah. And so the one that took the cake was siloed data and the inability for data analytics. Can you explain that a little more? That one was kind of interesting.
Yeah, I think the way I interpret that, and I thought that I called that one out too. I thought that was very fascinating. But we've got these different teams, right? Whether those are all teams within the security program or the IT operations or software development, but everybody's collecting data from different sources, right? And not having a central way to identify risks that are coming out of those, right? So the vuln management team may be over here, the AppSec team may be over there. You may have an internal pen test team and they're identifying things, the GRC team. So I think all these sources of data are siloed, right? And not everybody is able to collectively view how are we making progress on identifying risks and tracking these down and truly making progress in our security program.
Yeah, I think it was Tyler that once said the most difficult organizations organizations to breach are the ones that work really well together as a team. I think that speaks to that stat, right, Tyler?
Yeah, that is absolutely the case. And especially, you can take that one step further and do some analysis on how an organization is structured. We've seen a pattern in good organizations where security and operations, or security and IT, fall underneath the same directorate, whether that's a CIO, CTO, CISO. When the vision is coming down from the top and is oversight for both operations, feeling the pain of the operations side and understanding the security implications and pushing those teams together to work towards one vision, that's when we really started to see a lot of really good, mature things come out, and creative ways in order to secure things that didn't come from security. Oftentimes it was from operations. This is how we could do this to make this more secure, to meet the security demand that you asked for. So that's kind of an interesting dichotomy that we've started to put together, and we've been looking at a little bit more.
I also think that speaks to purple teaming too, is that collaboration between red and blue. And silos in general don't bode well for the organization as a whole. Like, a lot of aspects, security is definitely one of those.
So people are trying. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Lee. Go ahead.
I was just going to ask, as people are trying to move the bar, do you think they're gathering and monitoring metrics for improvement properly? Or are they not? Are they watching the right things to see to track their progress?
Well, I think that was one interesting thing that came out of this survey, was that the folks that were conducting Purple Team exercises were tracking things better, and stated that it made a more informed. It helped them make more informed decisions on their security strategy, right? So I think by doing it more continuously, knowing where their gaps are and being able to identify that more frequently, it helped inform their security strategy. So I would say, based on the survey results, it seems like that's the case, right? And which is encouraging, right? It kind of, that collaboration, the continuous aspects of doing the testing, forced them to be able to monitor this and measure it over time, right?
But I think it's smart. I think it's the next evolution of vulnerability management, and some of the pen testing that was really vulnerability management, but we called it pen testing, was really hyper focused on finding systems, finding applications, and finding vulnerabilities and counting them and ranking them. And that only gets you so far. When you couple with that the purple teaming aspect, that is we might have a vulnerability over there, or an attacker might get in here, but we can detect them right away. But guess what? This technique, we don't see it at all. And guess what? It doesn't even require a vulnerability. Now let's go shape our security strategy, right? It's kind of like that chaos engineering style of let's just go in and break a whole bunch of stuff and then focus in on the weakest parts of our application or our security program. I think it's sound.
Yeah. And I draw it akin to the analog of the incident response side of threat hunting, right? It's like, hey, I think we have this attacker in our environment. I'm just going to go look for the IOCs related to it. Kind of on the flip side, hey, I think we might be vulnerable to SMB relay or something, right? Let's go test it and find out.
Agreed. Yeah. The limited resources, I think, is an interesting one when you're using purple teaming. And I think many of us, on the show and listening, can just see how this plays out. You're conducting an exercise, they're using a particular technique, and the red team is just this is awesome, we're getting in. The blue team's yeah, we kind of knew about that, but no one would give us budget to fix it. I think that still happens a lot today.
And the other side of it is that, I'm sorry, Dan, I'm going to step on you for 1 second. The other side of it is
you're good.
Do you get told that we can't start looking at things because if we start looking at things, we don't know where it'll end? It's like owning an old house.
Yeah.
You got a little hole in the wall. You don't want to open it up because God knows what you'll find.
Yes. Been there, done that.
Yeah, it's so true. But I think what's encouraging is that the respondents in the survey are saying hey, by doing this, it actually freed up more resources, right? It identified where we needed to invest in security solutions and people. And so I think that's a good tell. And I would also say the ecosystem has changed even within the last year, right? With so much ransomware going on, breach insurance policies are going through the roof, but organizations are now being required to have them in certain circumstances. And so being able to show like, hey, these are the areas that we know we have big gaps, I think are going to start helping move those conversations when you talk about insurance and just what resources need to be freed up on the cyber side to get that more investment and to have a better risk mitigation strategy at whole.
Well, there's already insurance agencies that are doing this where they're looking at the whole cybersecurity program. They're looking at the resources available. They're looking at the maturity. And this makes it easy from an executive level or a business level to measure the business risk versus the business cost of whether we get this insurance and we can apply for these, RFPs, or the cost of this insurance based on the number of people we have dedicated to cyber insurance goes down, so we can actually allocate money to just bring in more analysts and do this better. Those metrics are starting to come into play, and I think that's a huge push in the right direction. I think insurance and cyber insurance especially has the capability to change the industry and help promote the return on investment from the business side of why this makes sense to provide more resources, to provide more analysts, to do security properly long term, and you can put dollar amounts behind that, and that's when it starts to actually get changed.
I wanted to highlight something that I think best. Dan, you must have been really excited about this because I read this part and I was excited for you because it's part of my soapbox too, and why we created some of the PPWorks, our podcast production automation software, right? And so one of the top challenges, 36% of the people said processes that take too long. And I'm like, that really resonated with me. I was just talking yesterday about the evils of email and spreadsheets. I'm like, if you're using email as part of your regular processes, it's really hard to automate that that process. I mean, it's not impossible. Certainly email, you could do an email integration with a lot of things, right? But I think oftentimes in people's jobs, I found this problem in security, and my process is I need to go email that person. And then there's like X amount of time that goes by before they respond. You don't know if they got it. You don't know if it went to spam. I mean, the list goes on with the problems in email. And if you're using that to track your tasks, you're probably really frustrated with that aspect of your job. Spreadsheets are the same way. It's very difficult to automate the updating of a spreadsheet, but then also communicate that update to a team. Spreadsheets were intended to be a one-on-one kind of thing. Like, we got all collaborative with them now, and we can all be working on the same spreadsheet, right? But like, really, its true intention was Paul needs to solve some kind of like math and tabulation problem, so I'm going to create a spreadsheet and then maybe share it in a company meeting. It was never intended to replace real software with automation. And that's where my brain went when I saw processes that take too long, because I think not just in podcast production, but in security, we use way too many spreadsheets and too much email to get things done. And that's going to slow things down.
Yeah, and obviously, from the vendor side, we replace a lot of spreadsheets, right? We replace a lot of manual processes.
Yeah. If only there was software that would allow you to do this, right?
You're teeing it up. Yeah. No, I mean, obviously, as PlexTrack, that's been our mission, is to eliminate that and have the efficiency gains so that you can actually stay focused on the right things. And that's why we love purple teaming. It helps everybody collaborate more effectively, and that's how you can do it, is through PlexTrack. But there's definitely I think what this survey really highlights is that there's like we're not just trying to blow smoke, and we're not just saying, hey, you should do this because like we're selling something that we think you should buy. There's actually like hard data around that,
right?
And we have our customers also highlighting like, hey, we're making demonstrable improvements, as well as the talent shortage, right? And I think that's something that we talk a lot about it in security. Hey, we got this talent shortage, and I would say, and it's noble and it's good to continue to try and focus on getting more people educated and brought into the fold. But we do need to make the current talent more effective, right, and more efficient. And so that's also another important aspect, that we as PlexTrack obviously help provide as well in terms of making that team laser focused on the right things and eliminating waste. And being able to collaborate more effectively.
Yeah, and I think it's software like that allows you to collaborate, right? Like and you don't want to tell people their spreadsheets suck, because quite frankly, I mean, you'd probably be wrong, like, first of all. And, Dan and I also, I think we're in a unique position of writing software to replace spreadsheets. It's not easy. When the user's like, but in a spreadsheet, I just did this. And you're like, oh crap! And like a React interface, like I gotta hold on. I gotta get my engineering team. I'll get back to you, right? Like, it's not easy. Spreadsheets are awesome, right? But there's
some crazy things that people do with spreadsheets.
Crazy things,
pretty amazing. Yeah,
because they're great at using data to tell a story at a point in time, right? And I don't want to discourage people from doing that, because you're still going to use spreadsheets to do that, right? But when you get it integrated into a workflow and a process, that's when you want software. Otherwise, stuff's just going to take too long. Because then when you update the spreadsheet, you got to send an email and tell everyone you updated the spreadsheet.
Right. Yep.
Lee,
you got to use the tool right. Even so, I mean, I've seen people do things with spreadsheets which are amazing and just hopelessly impossible to unwind or understand. But like, the right tool for the job is what we've all been saying.
Yep.
And automation is the only way we can really scale human beings. There's not enough humans to go around.
Very true.
Actually, I want to riff on that a little bit, Lee. I just had a talk with a good friend of mine, Kathleen Smith, and she was talking about how right now recruiters are overwhelmed. Anybody they can get, they're getting massive premiums on, because the market is bad right now for people. They can't find anybody to fill jobs. Anybody they can find, they're getting hugely paid for. So
but the
you just need automation desperately.
I'm seeing that from the other side, and I see a ton of people that are having a hard time finding jobs, that are either coming out of college, have some experience, or are trying to make a transition that have, really good experience. And the requirements for most of these security jobs are like, there's still a disparate gap here that we're landing on with HR, with bigger companies, and with the people trying to apply for these jobs that would be good candidates and would probably be very successful.
Well, not to derail the conversation about purple teaming and such, but I mean, you're right. But I think that that's not a factor. For the experienced candidates, they're able to find jobs like that. For the ones that are trying to break in, like you're talking about, it's not as quick, it's not as easy, it's not simple. And you're right, the job descriptions are weird, but it's just the fact that the companies are writing them badly, in my opinion.
No, I mean, you're spot on. Experienced people can get shuffled around, and there's a lot of us that are experienced that could walk to any job that we really want to if we make a call. I think that's the problem we end up having, is we have this huge gap of people and companies that need security people, but we're shuffling the same people. We actually need more people in the industry making that transition and or breaking into it from college, which requires that lower bar of entry to kind of make that shift. So I think we're both at the same place. You got those experienced people shuffling around, and you got the inexperienced people trying to break in that aren't making a good landing.
Well, I don't think that companies are having the extra bandwidth to take an inexperienced person and bring them up to speed, if you will. Everybody is pretty busy, so it's tough. So that's why we're saying that automation is so important, which is where purple teaming and making your teams work together, PlexTrack to do the automation on the team collaboration side and on the documentation side. Because I know I spent plenty of years in college. I didn't learn all the calculus in order to have Excel be the crowning achievement of my career.
Yeah. No, I think you hit it on the head though, Josh. I mean, because that's what I experienced when I was a security director. Is like we needed to move, and we needed to move fast, right? And so it was a little overwhelming or daunting to think like, do I want? I mean, I obviously want to, and I have the desire to bring in like an entry level or a more junior level person, but it's gonna slow us down from where we need to make progress, and then makes you not sleep as well as night when it's like, hey, are we going to be on the front page of the news tomorrow, right? So I think there's a balance the whole industry needs in terms of how do we train and onboard more junior level people, because we know we need them, and we need to build up the workforce while being able to be as effective as possible on accomplishing the mission at hand.
Dan, was there anything else in the survey that you wanted to highlight?
I think we touched on all of it. I think you hit on the high points that I also noticed. I think that the thing that also was interesting to me is that it is getting people into that continuous assessment mindset, which I'll always harp on. Right? I think that pen tests are great. Pen tests are much needed. The more often that you're doing them, the better. And since a big pen test can cost a lot of money and can take a lot of time, that's where the purple teaming and the adversary emulation really augments your program from the proactive side. So I think that was one key highlight. I think that want to continue to draw out.
Sweet. Any more questions for Dan?
When is the survey going to be released?
So we are doing, maybe I can make a few plugs for all the stuff PlexTrack related, if that's all right. But the webcast with the CRA is on October 19th. So we'll dive into all the specifics of the results and be able to provide those. I think that they said that the actual white paper will come out in early November. And then we're doing a lot of other activities throughout the month for Cyber Security Awareness Month. We're doing a webinar on breach insurance and another purple teaming webinar with another one of our partners early November. So we've got a lot of stuff going on. And we do have an ebook out for those that want to know how to crush Q4 and help on their report writing for pen tests as well. So I would encourage everyone to go check that out for free.
Outstanding. Is there like a good URL, Dan, that we can send people to?
PlexTrack.com, and then I think it's /ebook. Sorry, I should have that, but definitely just if you go to PlexTrack.com, you'll be able to browse to all of our content, the webinars and ebooks and things like that.
Okay. Yep. So we'll just send people to PlexTrack.com. And do you have a trial? What we typically do is do a quick demo and make sure we get you all what you need from a module perspective, and then set up a free trial for sure. Okay, perfect. I've started.
SecurityWeekly.com/PlexTrack also takes you to the same spot that delivers the pen test.
Yeah, SecurityWeekly.com/PlexTrack still works. And another thing in the works, to tell you what, we are almost complete with our product review for vulnerability management. And of course, that begs the question of how do I manage my vulnerabilities that come out of my vulnerability management system? And I've tried lots of things, and I think there's many of us, Tyler, myself included in there, that are like, yeah, like I would buy PlexTrack. And I'm not just saying that because they're a sponsor. Like Tyler, like, no, but like legit, we would just buy PlexTrack.
It's a good product.
It's worth every penny every day of the week that you use it. Agreed. I promise.
Well, thanks, guys. Yeah, I didn't pay you to say that, so I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, we mean that. I mean, and there's other stuff, open source stuff out there. And I don't want to knock the efforts that go into the other products or open source, right? People are making stuff to help solve people's problems. But, Dan, you and your team have just done a phenomenal job, I think, just understanding what the requirements are and needs, in that space. So props to you. And for our listeners, make sure you check it out. Dan, thank you for coming on Paul Security Weekly.
Yeah, thank you. Always enjoy it. Really appreciate it.
Coming up next, we're going to walk you through the security onion. Stick around. Dan, thanks again.